The Odyssey trailer just played before Superman, which I just went to watch, and I did a review on it. Should be coming out in a day or two, but I wanted to do a really quick video talking about my thoughts on the Odyssey teaser. Obviously, this movie isn't coming out for another 12 months, and this is only like a 45 to minute long teaser, so there's not a lot to get into. But I did want to talk about it because this is one of the most anticipated movies of next year. Honestly, the most hype I've seen for a movie in a very long time, probably since like Avengers Endgame. Oppenheimer was obviously quite hyped up, and then it exceeded all expectations, and now the Odyssey feels like an even bigger endeavor from Nolan. The cast is obviously stacked, and just the idea of Christopher Nolan doing an epic of this scale is just really, really exciting. So the trailer is only about a minute long and doesn't give us a lot to go on. The movie actually hasn't even stopped filming yet. It hasn't wrapped, so this is not even all the footage. But they were able to, get a little teaser going here, and I thought it was quite good. Some really good visuals here. A lot of like gorgeous IMAX looking shots. We only get brief glimpses of like what the real scale of this film is. The majority of it is a conversation between Tom Holland and John Bernthal's characters. Tom Holland is playing Telemachus, I think his name is, who is Odysseus's son. And they're really the only two actors that we see here. We get a brief glimpse of Damon, who is playing Odysseus, but not really that much. The majority of this teaser is just Bernthal and Holland talking about like, hey, where'd my dad go? And Bernthal's like, shoot, I don't know. And then Holland's like, okay, probably should go find him. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of cool that these are the two actors that we get first in the teaser, because Bernthal is obviously like really great, but didn't feel like one of the bigger names on the cast list. If you wanted to really get people hyped up, you'd probably show Damon or like Zendaya or Anne Hathaway or Robert Pattinson or something like that. And we haven't gotten our first looks at any of those people aside from set photos. But Bernthal, meanwhile, gets like the majority of the screen time in this teaser, and is doing pretty good job here in this small little speech he has. One thing to mention is that he is not like doing an accent or anything really of any sort. He's just doing John Bernthal, but in ancient Greece, which I quite like. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief that obviously people didn't talk like this in ancient times, but as long as you get John Bernthal to do his thing, I don't really care. So I'm fine with it. Tom Holland just gets a lot of reaction shots. I'm very curious to see what he's like within this film. This feels like his first really big test outside of Spider-Man as to like how he's going to be as a movie star and as an actor. A lead in a Christopher Nolan film is pretty huge, and he seems to be at least the co-lead of this movie, a pretty significant role. We also get a brief mention of Zeus in this voiceover from, I believe it's John Leguizamo, who, when I heard him, I just like couldn't stop thinking about Sid the Sloth, because he plays him and he still sounds like Sid the Sloth. But anyway, he briefly mentioned Zeus, which is really the first thing he says, and I don't know if that's intentional, but it is interesting, because one thing I'm curious about with this film is how much is Nolan going to get into like the mythology of the Odyssey, because obviously you have to get into myths and deities and big fantastical creatures when you're doing an Odyssey film. But Nolan is someone who, even when he's made kind of sci-fi films, or like The Prestige is kind of a fantasy in a sense, he's still always grounding things in logic and in science and in like the real world in a way that you just can't really do within an epic of the Odyssey's proportions and with like the mythological ramifications of what the Odyssey is. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. We don't really get a glimpse of it here, and generally this does just feel like a normal Nolan movie, but obviously it's not going to be. This is him pushing himself into a genre, into a world that he really has never done before. But like as far as the visuals go, as far as the Ludwig Göransson score that we hear within this teaser, it feels like very by the books Nolan, which is obviously fine. Nolan's one of the best filmmakers working today, maybe of all time. So I'm fine if he's making a movie that's just the exact same style that he typically does. But obviously, that's not really going to be the case here. We are going to be getting some mythology within this, and this doesn't give us a huge hint as to how mythological, how fantastical this is going to be. But the fact that a god is one of the first things mentioned, I think is somewhat intentional and speaks to that there will be gods within this movie. Also, some brief looks at the scale of the fights. There's just people getting ready for battle that look great. I think everything in this trailer looks incredible. This is going to be the first and so far only film that is shot entirely with IMAX cameras, and you really feel that within the scale of every shot. Even the shots that are just Bernthal and Holland talking, they just look really, really good and have this visual flair to them that really no film has. No other filmmaker is really doing it like this. And then you have some of the wider, more awe-inspiring establishing shots within this teaser, like the one of the Trojan horse under sand, the one of Damon holding onto a raft in the water, that just look really, really good. I think, obviously with just a minute, there's not a lot that we can get out of it, but I will say this looks incredible. Just increases my anticipation of this film. I cannot wait. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Odyssey trailer. If you want to go watch it, go see it. It's playing before Superman and probably Jurassic World, I think. If you want to watch it in IMAX, I'm pretty sure you have to go to Superman. But yeah, comes out in a year, so gonna be a while, but I'm quite excited. And this trailer just gets me more excited. So yeah, that's all I have to say. This was gonna be a quick one. So bye.